Hey everybody, it's time for one of my favorite videos of the year. It is draft rankings time, where I'll be ranking my personal top 15 prospects heading into the 2021 NHL Draft, which is a little over a week away. And this is going to be a lot of fun. This is a really interesting year as far as the draft goes because there's a lot of uncertainty. Over the last few years, we've kind of always had that clear-cut number one, and we've had a really good idea of who the top three were going to be. And, you know, heading into the draft, things seem to be a lot clearer than what they are this year. And this year, it's more, there's kind of just groups of players that could go in any order, could go in any number of different positions, and you kind of have the guys who are expected to be top five, the guys who are expected to kind of be, you know, anywhere from 4 through 8, and then, you know, the guys who are expected to be more mid-round. You know, it's a lot more uncertain heading into this year, and a big reason for that is the fact that everything that's happened over the past year and a half. You haven't gotten to see the players play as much as you usually do. You haven't had to, you know, there was no Memorial Cup, for example, in the Canadian Junior League, so you missed out on that. Some guys had to play over in Europe. Others played limited seasons in Canada, in the U.S. It was overall a very interesting year. The OHL didn't even have a season this past year, so a lot of those guys were playing in Europe. You know, WHL and Quebec League had very limited seasons or somewhat limited seasons. NCAA had a conference-only season until you got obviously into the tournament in the playoffs. But there's just so much that changed, and it was such a weird year that it's kind of led to a draft where there's a lot of different possibilities. And as far as rankings goes, there's a lot of different rankings this year where, you know, rather than having those clear-cut 1, 2, 3, there's all different guys in those positions, and there's a lot of different rankings depending on who you ask around the hockey world. So this is just my personal top 15. I'm not going to go into super big detail on each player because I don't want this video to be, you know, ridiculously long. What I am going to do, however, is over the next week plus into the NHL draft coming up next weekend, I'm going to do more detailed individual videos on each of the top prospects, and I'm going to get through as many of those as I can over the next week or so before the draft. And I'll go into more detail on each player in those videos where each player will get their own individual video. I did this last year for some of the top guys, and I hope to do more of that this year heading into the draft. So this is just going to be my rankings list 1 through 15 for my top prospects heading into this year's draft. And without further ado, let's do it. Before we start, I just ask you please subscribe and hit that thumbs up if you haven't. It helps the channel so much. But let's get into it here, looking at my top 15. Coming in at number 1, we have defenseman Owen Power, who is ranked number 1 by many different people heading into this year's draft. He is the expected number 1 overall pick. I have him at number 1. Left shot defenseman coming out of the University of Michigan. Big D-man, 6'5", 214, according to Elite Prospects. All my height and weights will be from Elite Prospects. He played 26 games at Michigan last year, scoring 3 goals, 13 assists for 16 points, and a +18 rating. Very good defenseman. Not very often you see a guy with this size also have this level of skating and offensive ability. Great two-way player. Really excited to see what he looks like. I think he has a really high ceiling in the NHL, and he is my number 1 ranked player. Number 2, his Michigan teammate, Maddie Benner, center coming out of the University of Michigan. I have him ranked, you know, I've seen him ranked all the way from 2 all the way down to like 6 or 7. I have him ranked at number 2. I think he's the best forward in this draft, and I think he has a ton of potential coming out of Michigan. 6'1", 174. I think he obviously is going to put some weight on when he does move up to the pro ranks. But 24 games played last year. He had 10 goals, 14 assists for 24 points, and a plus 21 rating, a point per game player in college. Also, very responsible defensively, and I think that's an important thing, especially for a young player. A lot of times we see these high-scoring players coming out of junior or coming out of college, but they still have to learn the defensive side of the game. Beniers has the defensive side, obviously still going to improve there, but he already has a pretty good grasp of the defensive side of the game. And I think that is going to help him become a better NHL player sooner. And I like him as number 2 this year. He is my second-ranked prospect. I think there's a lot of upside potential there with Maddie Beniers. Number 3, I have Brant Clark, a right-shot defenseman. Normally plays in the OHL. Obviously, the OHL did not have a season this year, so he went over and played pro hockey in Slovakia. He's 6'2", 190 pounds, so he already has that NHL size. And again, is just a teenager. He will continue to put on some weight and get bigger and stronger. He played 26 games over in Slovakia this season, where he scored 5 goals, 10 assists for 15 points, and had a plus 6 rating. That was playing pro hockey as an 18-year-old. And I think Clark really is going to end up being a great defenseman. He's another guy that's really been ranked all over the place. I've seen him ranked up in the top 3. I've seen him all ranked all the way down in like the 7, 8, 9 area. I have him at number 3. I really like the potential here with him. And again, he played pro in Slovakia this past year. And put up pretty good numbers for a kid playing the pro game. So I'm really excited to see where he ends up. I don't think he obviously is going to be NHL ready this coming season. It might be a couple years, but I think there's a ton of upside potential with him, and he certainly already has the NHL body. At number 4, I have William Ekland, a forward coming out of the Swedish Hockey League over in Sweden. Played pro hockey this year, 5'10", 172 pounds, not the biggest guy, but in 40 games playing in the SHL last year, he had 11 goals, 12 assists for 23 points and a -2 rating. Just, you look at what Lucas Raymond last year, who was an undersized forward coming out of Sweden. We saw him go 4 overall to the Detroit Red Wings. Ekland, I think, can also be a number 4 guy, top 5 player in this draft. I have him ranked a little bit higher than I think a lot of other people do, but Swedish players tend to be extremely intelligent. He's a very good skater. He's slick with the puck, and he put up great numbers for a teenager playing pro hockey in Sweden's top league last year with 23 points in 40 games. I really like the potential here. I think he has a chance to be the best European player taken in this draft, and I would not at all be surprised if we see him go top 5. Coming in at number 5, I have Luke Hughes, a left shot defenseman from the U.S. National Team Development Program. Obviously, the younger brother of Quinn Hughes and Jack Hughes, who are already in the NHL. Hughes has got some size to him. He's 6'2", only 176 pounds, but again, I think he's going to put weight on as he gets older and stronger. But good size for a defenseman. He played 56 games between the USHL and national team play last year with the U.S. National Development Team. He had 10 combined goals, 39 assists for 49 points in 56 games combined, and a plus 16 rating between the two. Obviously, a ton of upside potential here. He's a great skater, really good offensive defenseman with the ability to put up a ton of points. Defensive game, obviously going to need some attention. He's going to have to work in that area to, become an NHL level defender. But you can say the exact same thing about Quinn Hughes up in Vancouver, where the offensive game is obviously there, working on the defense. I think Luke is kind of in the same way, but a lot of potential there. The chance to become a really good top pair defenseman in the NHL. The offensive game is superb. If he learns the game at the NHL level defensively, he could be a legitimate Norris Trophy level defenseman in the future. And I really, really like the potential there from him. And I have him ranked at number 5. I could see him going in the top 5 or just outside the top 5 at possibly number 6 or number 7. And I think whatever team that drafts him is going to get a really good young D-man with a very, very high ceiling. Coming in at number 6, I have Dylan Genther. From the WHL, he is a winger. He can play the left side or the right side. He's 6'1", 181 pounds. He only played 12 games in the WHL last season. However, in those 12 games, he had 12 goals, 12 assists for 24 points, and a plus 19 rating. Obviously, huge numbers from Genther in the WHL last season, 2 points per game. Obviously, very limited sample size, but it just shows you the scoring prowess and the potential that he has. I think he has a chance to be possibly the best goal scorer to come out of this draft. He could be the best pure goal scorer to come out of this draft. Really, really like what he brings to the table. And obviously, good NHL body as well at 6'1", 181, and a chance to probably pack on another 10 to 15 pounds when he gets into an NHL training program and adds that strength as he gets older. A team that gets Genther is going to be really, really happy to get him, and I think he's going to be a really good forward coming out of this year's draft. Coming in at number 7, I have another University of Michigan player. This time it is forward Kent Johnson, who can play center or wing. Elite Prospects has him listed as a center, but he could also certainly play wing. Now, he's a little bit smaller. He's 6'1", but he's only 165 pounds. Again, I'd like to see him put some weight on once he does get into a pro training program, but this is a guy who at Michigan was often overlooked, obviously because of Owen Power and because of Matthew Beniers, kind of being the stars and the big names at Michigan. Kent Johnson was overshadowed by them, I think, a little bit, but in 26 games played, he had 9 goals, 18 assists for 27 points, and was a plus 16. Really, really good player, over a point per game this past year at Michigan. And I think he has a chance to kind of be maybe a little bit of a steal. I have him ranked higher than a lot of other rankings do. I've seen him mostly around like the 9, 10, 11 area. Johnson, I think, could be a little bit better than that. And I think he's not getting the same level of recognition that he could be because of Power and Beniers coming out of Michigan. And they have kind of taken a little bit of the spotlight off him. But I think he certainly should go in the top 10, and I think there's a ton of potential there for him to, if he drops, he could really be a steal in this year's draft. Coming in at number 8, I have Swedish defenseman Simon Edvinsson. Left shot D-man, a ton of size. He played in Sweden last year for in a few different leagues in Sweden, not just the SHL. But he's 6'5", 207, obviously an NHL body already. Combined between all the leagues in Sweden last year, he played 34 games. He had 1 goal, 11 assists for 12 points and a +1 rating. Didn't put up huge numbers. I think in the SHL games that he played, he only had 1 point. But don't let that fool you. The template is there. The raw talent is there for Edvinsson to really become a great player in the NHL. Obviously, awesome size. Still definitely needs some development, but an extremely high ceiling for this defenseman. And I have him going in the top 10, in the latter part of the top 10, but I do think he is a top 10 player this year. And I have him ranked at number 8. At number 9, I have center Mason McTavish, who, coming out of the OHL, played in Switzerland this past season, obviously because the OHL did not have a season. And McTavish brings a lot of goal scoring potential to any team that drafts him this year, and he brings an NHL-ready body as well. This is one of the biggest things that I love about Mason McTavish, is that he is 6'2", 207 as an 18-year-old. He has a chance to become a real power forward from the center position in the NHL, and a guy who is not afraid to go to the net, is not afraid to get to the dirty areas, has a very good shot as well, and can put the puck in the net. Played 13 games over in Switzerland this past year. He scored 9 goals and 2 assists for 11 points and a +4 rating. Again, he was playing pro hockey with men in Switzerland. Wasn't getting huge minutes, wasn't the star of the team, was playing in a pro league as a teenager, but put up 9 goals in 13 games. And I think that just shows you the scoring prowess that McTavish is going to bring to whatever team drafts him. I think he has a chance to be really, really good forward if he, really uses that body, parks himself in front of the net, and is not afraid to go to the dirty areas. I am excited to see what he looks like when he is NHL ready, and I think a team is going to be getting a very good goal scorer when they draft him this year. Coming in at number 10, I have Jasper Wallstedt, the top-ranked goaltender in this year's draft, and the only goaltender that I have in my top 15. He is Swedish, played in the SHL this past season. Good size, 6'3", 214. Obviously can get even bigger as he's still only 18 years old. And he played 22 games over in the SHL this year, putting up a very good 2.23 goals against average and a .908 save percentage. I'd like to see the save percentage a little bit higher, but the goals against were very strong this year. And again, he was playing professional hockey in the top league in Sweden. And for a teenager, that is pretty darn impressive. So Wallstedt, I have ranked at number 10. I don't think he's quite the prospect that Askarov was last year in goal. Yaroslav Askarov was obviously a very, very highly touted goaltender, Russian goaltender. But Wallstedt, I don't have at that same, can't miss level. But I do think he has the potential to become a very, very good NHL goaltender. He is ranked in the top 10 for a reason, and I think the upside is absolutely there for him to become a top 10, maybe even a top 5 NHL goaltender down the line, depending on how he develops. Coming in at number 11, we have another Swedish player. It is Fabian Lizelle, a right winger, also coming out of the SHL. Smaller player, only 5'10", 172 pounds, exactly the same size as William Ekland, who is also a Swede, who I have ranked at number 4. Ekland put up, I think a little closer to being NHL ready, put up bigger numbers this past year. Lizelle only scored 2 goals and 1 assist for 3 points and was a -3 in 26 games played in the Swedish league this year. However, do not let those stats fool you. He's got a ton of talent, very creative offensive player, great skater. Obviously playing among men in the Swedish league this past season, where a lot of these younger players don't get huge ice time, don't get power play time, because they're not the stars of the team. Whereas the guys who play in juniors, they're the superstars. There's no, they're playing among other players around the same age. And the best junior players, are the guys that are leading the way. Where these young guys who are playing pro hockey over in Europe, there are like fully pro players on these teams. So these younger guys are not getting the same level of ice time and opportunities that the junior players are. But on the plus side, they're playing professional hockey already. They're playing against men. And sometimes that leads to them being a little bit more NHL ready sooner because they're already used to playing against, that level of competition. So while he didn't put up big numbers this past year, there's a ton of talent here and a lot of potential, and I have him ranked number 11. He's going to be a really good winger, I think, in the NHL. Coming in at number 12, I have center Cole Sillinger from the USHL. He's got an NHL body already at 6 foot, 201 pounds. He played 31 games this past year, scoring 24 goals, 22 assists for 46 points and a +5 rating. Really good young player, I think, with a lot of upside. Not a top 10 guy, but a guy that I definitely think will go in the middle portion of the first round, and I have him ranked at number 12. I think there's a lot of opportunity for him to become a really good second-line center in the NHL. Not sure you're going to be getting a top guy here, but I think you could be getting a very good second-line center and a guy who could be putting up, 50-plus, 60-plus point seasons in the NHL. Really, really excited to see how his career turns out. Coming in at number 13, I have Chaz Lucius from the U.S. National Team Development Program as well. He was obviously teammates with Luke Hughes, and he is a very good center with a lot of goal-scoring ability. 6 foot, 172 pounds listed at right now. Played 25 games this past season between the USHL and the national team. He scored 26 goals in those 25 games. Also tacked on 12 assists for 38 points and a +15 rating. Obviously, a big-time goal scorer from the middle here. And a guy that I think, again, is going to have the opportunity to become a very good goal-scoring forward in the NHL. I have him ranked at 13. At number 14, I have defenseman Carson Lambos, who normally plays in the WHL, but actually played most of this past year in Finland on loan. Obviously, there was a lot of uncertainty about the WHL season and just hockey in Canada as well in general. So he played most of the year in Finland. He's got NHL size. He's got the potential to become a very good offensive defenseman in the NHL. 6'1", 201 pounds. He played 17 games in Finland, scoring 2 goals, 12 assists for 14 points and a +9 rating. And, really good potential here. I look at him as a mid-first round pick, but I think there's a lot of upside. There's certainly no guarantee. I think there's no guarantee that he becomes the top-level defenseman that you would be hoping for picking him this early in the draft, but I think that the upside potential there is very, very high, that if he develops well, he could end up becoming one of the better offensive defensemen in the NHL, and I think there's a lot of puck moving and talent here that is really going to translate well to the NHL. And obviously he has the body for it as well at 6'1", 201. You start getting into those NHL training programs, and you start packing on 10, 15 pounds in muscle and strength, and you've got a guy that could become a very, very strong and tough defenseman here while putting up great offensive numbers. And I'm really excited to see. He's kind of a wild card, I think. He's kind of, out of all of these guys in the top 15, I think he's really a wild card as to a guy that maybe doesn't end up being what he's expected to be if things don't work out, but if things do, has the potential to be a guy that you wish you took in the top 5, possibly, if he does develop well and turns into that high-end defenseman that he definitely has the potential to be. And lastly, coming in at number 15, and this one might be a little bit off the board, but I have Theodore Fetchkov coming out of Russia. He's a forward who can play center or wing, and played last year, but split between the MHL and the VHL, which is in Russia, but below the KHL. 6 foot, 179 pounds. He played 53 games last season, scoring 9 goals, 21 assists for 30 points and a +8 rating. But the thing that puts Fetchkov into the top 15, in my opinion, is his defensive game. He could be the best defensive forward to come out of this entire draft. And I think that when you have a player this young that is this good defensively, that is a huge plus. Because if you're going to be a good center in the NHL, you have to be able to play well defensively and in your own end. And guys that already have that at such a young age, that's something that generally comes later, especially for some of the more higher talented, higher scoring forwards. For a guy to have that already at such a young age is a really, really big plus in my opinion. And that is what puts him into the top 15 for me. Obviously, 30 points in 53 games. There are some questions about what his offensive output is going to be, but I think he could possibly become a future Selke Trophy winner and a guy who could be the best defensive forward to come out of this draft, like I said. And, you know, that just to me, that's so intriguing, and I think really gives him a lot of upside moving forward, because when you're good defensively, you already, you know, if the offense doesn't come, you're at least going to have that defensive game to fall back on. It very, very, very similar to like a Joel Eriksson-Ek in Minnesota, where, you know, for a number of years he was looked at as a defensive forward and a shutdown guy, and the offense wasn't there. Now this past season, the offense did show up for Joel Eriksson-Ek. And, you know, I think that's, you know, fantastic. And he's got a really big, nice new contract out of it and all that. But even if the offense never comes, you still have that defensive game to fall back on. And you can be a good shutdown forward. If the offensive game does come, now you're looking at Selke Trophy possibilities and being one of the best two-way players in the NHL. And I see that with Fetchkov here, where the defensive game is already there. If the offense doesn't come, he still has that defensive game. If it does come, now you're looking at a great two-way player who could potentially be a Selke Trophy guy. So he is in at number 15 in my rankings. And I know that is a lot higher than where most others have him. A lot of people have him as a late first rounder. But I think the intrigue of that two-way game, in my opinion, is enough for me to put him up at number 15. So there you have it. Those are my 2021 NHL Draft Rankings heading into this year's draft, which is just over a week away. And those are my top 15, so we'll see where these guys actually go, how the draft actually ends up, but it's going to be a lot of fun to see the draft coming up next weekend. And also, I'll be doing player-specific videos for many of these prospects, as many of them as I can, before the draft, looking at them each in a more detailed manner. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon, merchandise store, donation link, and channel memberships are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys soon.